Ah, 'tis the season for blood, guts, horror, and mayhem. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the garage. There are a few things within the horror genre that I love as much as holiday horror. In this video, I'm going to specifically be talking about Christmas horror movies. It got me thinking because of the recent release of It's a Wonderful Knife, which I have not seen yet. And of course, the recent announcement that next year when we get Terrifier 3, Art the Clown's going to be wreaking havoc during the holiday season. Could those two sneak into this list after I see them? Possibly. But I'm going to give you my 5 favorite holiday or Christmas horror films that you can watch this Yuletide season. Let's start with a few honorable mentions that didn't quite crack the top 5, but are movies that I love so much. Some oldies but goodies, but also some modern ones. And one of the modern horror films that I love that takes place during the holiday season is 2016's Better Watch Out. This is a movie that is a bit divisive among the horror community, but if you didn't know the plot twist of this movie when you saw it the first time, I can't imagine that it didn't blow you away, unless somehow you saw it coming. Which, if that's the case, you are quite the sleuth, because it really took me by surprise about halfway through this film. This film is a wonderful kind of mix of Home Alone meets Psycho, and there's just Christmas everywhere. Decorations, songs. She's babysitting him on Christmas Eve. It's got Putty from Seinfeld in it. Another honorable mention I'm going to throw out there is a Finnish horror film called Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale. This is a crazy movie. That is a rarity. It kind of lives up to its name in that respect. A Santa Claus is unleashed, and he is not the traditional Santa Claus that the kids in the village have come to expect. He quite possibly is evil. And when he gets out, some crazy shit happens in Rare Exports. Another one that I would highly recommend. And my last honorable mention is also going to be somewhat of a modern horror movie that came out really at the dead center of the COVID pandemic. And that's built into the commentary of this film too. But it's a movie called Silent Night. Dystopian, fucked up look at family during the holidays. But it also kind of paints this picture of the end of the world. A sickness that has kind of spread and is infecting people. And the only way it can be avoided is to literally die. And this family gets together for one final Christmas together, knowing that this is inevitable. And there is a freaking amazing child performance turned in here by Roman Griffin Davis of Jojo Rabbit fame. And he drops a lot of F-bombs, which I also found quite pleasurable. All right, let's get into my top 5. My number 5 Christmas horror movie is a family film, I think. Wait till your kids are about 10, 11, 12 years old, but show them Gremlins from 1984, directed by the great Joe Dante. But this movie is a awesome, in my opinion, gateway horror film where it has some horrific elements to it, especially coming through the eyes of a young child, but it has great Christmas imagery, and it's funny as hell. It's also amazing to see the Gremlins and, of course, Gizmo, the practical effects, the puppetry involved. My number 4 is going to come as a bit of a surprise, but I absolutely freaking love this movie. And why it's a surprise is because I'm not really a musicals guy. But my number 4 is Anna and the Apocalypse. It's an English film, a musical, like I said, and it's a zombie movie. It's a Christmas horror movie. It's a fight for survival. It's a high school comedy. The songs are awesome. I still listen to Hollywood Ending literally weekly. One of my favorite songs ever, period, but definitely from a musical. This is a film that took me by surprise. And it has Ella Hunt playing the heroine, kicking ass, killing zombies, stabbing them with Christmas yard decorations. If you haven't seen Anna and the Apocalypse, and especially if you're a fan of musicals, give it a shot. You do not want to be on his list. My number 3 is, of course, Krampus, from the great horror director Michael Dougherty. This is a film that tells the story of the fable Krampus, of course, the kind of evil Santa, if you will, from folklore. It uses great elements of those folk tales that we knew as children or that we've heard, but it mixes in awesome winter setting where you're snowed in and being hunted down by Krampus. One of the scenes in this film with the girl under the car, without spoiling it, is one of my favorite horror scenes from any Christmas horror movie. Krampus is a must-watch every holiday season for me. And I think I'm going to introduce my 10-year-old son to this movie for the first time this year. I think he's ready for it, so I'm excited to watch Krampus with him. But if you love Trick or Treat, that's Michael Dougherty as well. Make sure you check out Krampus. All right, guys, my number 2 is a film that's considered a bad movie. I disagree. It's the runner-up for me. It is Silent Night, Deadly Night at number 2. This film follows Billy, a guy who snaps during the holiday season in a Santa costume and goes on a murderous rampage. That is a very basic plot line to this film. There is some awesome horror imagery in this film as well. Blood in the snow, etc., practical effects. One shot of a victim being impaled onto antlers on taxidermy that's hanging on the wall is one of my favorite horror scenes. I absolutely love Silent Night, Deadly Night. It gets a bad rap. It's from 1984, so it's a product of its time, but it is a lot of fun, and it was one of those first movies where we saw the killer in a Santa costume that has been played out 100 times since then. Silent Night, Deadly Night, very close to my heart. It's my runner-up. And my number 1 Christmas horror movie is also probably in my top 10 horror movies, period, of all time. From 1974, director Bob Clark. I'm not talking about A Christmas Story. I'm talking about Black Christmas. It has to be my number 1. If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, then it must be on too tight. I mean, a simple premise. The slasher basically invented here, at least in the eastern part of the world, because it's a sorority house. There's a guy calling on the phone. He's creepy. He's mumbling. He's making profane noises. They have to survive Christmas Eve with this guy kind of lurking in the shadows. I mean, right away, you hear the influences of movies like When a Stranger Calls and Scream later on, and literally any slasher that you want to name that came out after 1974, including Halloween. This is a monumental niche in the timeline for the horror genre. It's my favorite Christmas horror movie, and like I said, one of my all-time favorite horror movies ever. I know I missed some. There are so many that I love, too, that I didn't mention today. Let me know down in the comments, what is your favorite Christmas horror movie? What is a staple that you have to watch every year? Are you going to introduce your young friends or kids to any horror movies like Gremlins or Krampus? Thanks for tuning in. Happy holidays. I'll see you next time in the garage.